We all have that notebook or that file on our computer just filled with brilliant ideas. But there's this huge, frustrating gap between having those ideas and actually doing anything about them. It's the gap between our intentions and our actions. So that's what we're going to tackle in this explainer: how to finally build that bridge.
And this question from author Steve Pavlina, it absolutely nails the problem, doesn't it? It's that feeling of being totally frozen by overthinking, of planning and replanning until that perfect moment just evaporates. That's analysis paralysis, and it is the absolute enemy of getting anything done.
So what if I told you that the man who asked that question, Steve Pavlina, used a system so powerful he completed a 4-year, 2-degree program in just 3 semesters? Yes, you heard that right. 18 months to get 2 bachelor's degrees. Let's break down exactly how he pulled it off.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the story of his frankly impossible achievement. Then, we'll unpack the principles that made it happen, how to get laser-focused on your purpose, how to actually make failure your ally, and how to use the 80-20 rule to focus like you've never focused before. And finally, we'll wrap it all into a simple system to take you from just thinking to actually doing.
Right, so let's get into it. The first question on everyone's mind is probably, how in the world is that even possible? It sounds completely superhuman. But Pavlina's story isn't about being a superhero. It's about a radical shift in mindset, a relentless, almost stubborn bias toward taking action. And get this, it wasn't just about speed. We're talking 2 degrees in computer science and mathematics with a 3.9 GPA. During his last semester, while taking 37 units of senior-level classes, he also worked a 40-hour-a-week job. And through it all, he still slept 7-8 hours a night and had a social life. The key here is this wasn't about burnout, it was about extreme efficiency, all driven by that do-it-now philosophy.
Okay, so where do you even begin with something like this? Well, before you can do it now, you have to know what your it actually is. I mean, action without direction is really just chaos. Pavlina's entire system is built on this powerful foundation that has to come first, before any of the productivity hacks.
This whole idea comes from the legendary author Napoleon Hill. He called it definiteness of purpose, and it just means knowing with absolute, unshakable clarity what you want to achieve. It's not some vague hope, It's a specific, written-down target. And that clarity, it doesn't just keep you motivated, it becomes a filter for every single decision you make, helping you instantly toss aside distractions that don't move you toward your goal. And Pavlina put this into practice in a super powerful way. He didn't just think about his income goal, he made it impossible to ignore. He put signs up everywhere. By making his purpose so visible, his brain automatically started filtering decisions. Does this get me closer to $5,000 a month? If the answer was no, he immediately dropped it. Simple as that. But once you have that crystal clear goal, what's the biggest thing that holds you back? Well, for most of us, it's the fear of getting it wrong. To truly do it now, you have to completely reframe your relationship with failure. You see, most of us are taught to ready, aim, fire. We plan, we strategize, we aim, and a lot of times we never actually fire. The do-it-now mindset completely flips this. It's ready, fire, aim. You jump in and you take the shot. And why? Because the moment you fire, you get real-world data. You see where you landed. Now you have actual information to adjust your aim for the next shot, instead of just guessing in the dark. This is such a powerful way to think about it, right? Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a byproduct of taking action. The people who succeed the most are often the ones who fail the most, simply because they take the most shots. Embracing that idea frees you from the paralysis of needing to be perfect. So how do you actually apply this in your daily life? Here's a brilliantly simple tool: the 60-second decision rule. Indecision is a massive time waster. So the next time you're stuck, just set a timer for 1 minute. When it goes off, you make a choice. That's it, period. It doesn't matter if it's what to eat for dinner or which task to start next. The goal is to spend your time doing, not just deciding what to do.
Okay, so you've defined your purpose, you're taking immediate action, and you're not afraid to fail. That's a recipe for a lot of activity. But how do you make sure that activity is actually effective? How do you avoid burnout? You need a filter.
And that filter is the famous 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. The core idea is super simple. For most things in life, roughly 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your effort. Your job then is to figure out what that vital 20% is. the tasks, the projects, or even the people that give you the biggest return, and pour your energy there. Pavlina applied this with honestly brutal efficiency in college. He once flat out told a professor he wasn't going to do a project because it was tedious work that wasn't going to teach him anything new. He calculated that the 20 hours of effort just wasn't worth 10% of his grade, so he'd happily take an A- instead of an A. He triaged his time and put those hours towards something that actually mattered more.
This is a really powerful question for applying that 80-20 rule to your whole life. It's a concept called zero-based thinking. And if the answer to that question is no, then you have to be ruthless about dropping it so you can move on to something better. There is zero honor in dedicating your life to a goal that just doesn't inspire you anymore.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground here, so let's pull it all together into a simple, repeatable framework you can start using like today. This is how we move from theory into practice, from just thinking into actually doing.
It all really boils down to this simple action loop. You start by getting crystal clear on your purpose. Then you act. You fire first. And this is crucial. You learn from that action, and you use that 80-20 filter to refocus your aim. It's not a one-time thing. It's a constant cycle of acting, learning, and improving that pushes you forward with incredible momentum.
And look, this isn't just some modern-day productivity hack. There's this amazing story from Napoleon Hill about a salesman who felt completely defeated. After learning the simple mantra, "Do it now," he immediately went back to his dead accounts, the ones he'd totally given up on. He just took action. The result? 8 large sales in 48 hours. His conclusion says it all. It is amazing. So that brings us to the final and honestly the most important question of all. After hearing all of this, what is the one thing, big or small, that you've been putting off? What is one thing you will do now?